Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Sip and Talk. I'm Joe, and as always, I've got Sunny here with me.
Hey, you, and welcome back to the Deep Dive. Hope things are good. So you know how you sometimes just find something online that really makes you laugh?
Oh, yeah. What'd you find?
Well, this friend of mine, Micky, he has this YouTube channel. It's called Mickytolife. Seriously, you got to check it out.
Okay, Mickytolife. What's it about?
He just has this amazing way of finding the humor in, like, totally normal, everyday things.
Observational stuff.
Exactly. Anyway, if you need a laugh, seriously, look up Mickytolife.
Hey, sounds like a plan.
Yeah, good stuff.
But speaking of things grabbing our attention, maybe we should shift over to our regular update on the Trump tariffs.
Looks like things might be shifting a little.
Well, you got it. Well, the big news came on April 22nd. Some pretty interesting comments from President Trump.
Oh, yeah. What did he say?
He basically indicated that the existing tariffs on Chinese goods, the ones around 145%, he said they're too high. His words.
Too high. Wow. Okay, that's a change in tune, isn't it? Considering where we've been.
It is. And he didn't just stop there. He mentioned a plan to substantially reduce them.
Substantially reduce. Okay, so not getting rid of them entirely then.
No, he was clear about that they won't go to zero. But the idea, he said, is to negotiate with China and get this in a friendly manner.
Friendly?
Friendly, aiming for what he called fair trade. So yeah, a lot of folks are looking at this and thinking, maybe this is a sign the trade war could be cooling off a bit.
Friendly negotiations.
Yeah.
Wow. After all the, back and forth, that's definitely a bit unexpected. So how did the markets take this news, this potential olive branch?
Well, the reaction was pretty fast and pretty strong. On that same day, April 22nd, U.S. stock markets jumped.
How much are we talking?
The Dow went up over 2.5%. That's, 1016 points? More than 1,000 points anyway.
Oh, okay.
And the NASDAQ, the S&P 500, they were also up over 2.5%. So yeah, a really positive reaction from investors.
That's a pretty clear thumbs up then. Okay, so the markets were definitely optimistic. But, is everyone convinced? Are analysts saying, okay, problem solved?
Well, not so fast.
Yeah.
Analysts are, still advising some caution. It's not over yet.
Right.
Because, the real outcome still hinges on how China actually responds to all this talk.
Makes sense. It takes two to tango, or detangle, I guess.
Exactly. And we know how volatile things can get with trade news. So this market bump is nice, but, volatility could easily stick around. It's not like it's guaranteed smooth sailing from here.
Yeah, that's true. We've seen things turn on a dime before. So, okay. Why the potential shift now? Any ideas on what might be behind this? Softening, maybe?
Well, there are a couple of potential reasons floating around. One thought is it could just be strategic.
Strategic how?
Remember when the trade tensions really flared up before? The stock market took some serious hits.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, some analysis pointed to over $6.6 trillion in market capitalization just vanishing.
Yeah.
That's a massive chunk of value disappearing from public companies.
6.6 trillion.
Well,
wow. Yeah, numbers like that tend to get people's attention, don't they?
You bet. So maybe this is a kind of concession, realizing that the tariff war was having a pretty big negative impact financially.
That makes sense. Any other theories?
Another angle people are looking at is the global supply chain situation. There's this idea that the world's reliance on China, specifically for manufacturing, has been slowly decreasing anyway.
Because companies have been moving production.
Exactly. Over the past few years, lots of businesses started looking for other places to make their stuff. So maybe the focus is shifting now towards making deals with those other countries.
Interesting. So if companies are already diversifying away from China, maybe the U.S. feels it has a different kind of leverage now or needs a different approach?
Could be. It changes the dynamics, right?
Yeah. Let's zoom out for a sec. This whole tariff thing, it didn't just start yesterday. It's been a long road.
Oh, absolutely. Going back to the start of this whole dispute, the tariff levels being thrown around were all over the place. Sometimes talk of 50%, even up to 65% on certain things.
Right. And haven't there been exemptions for certain products along the way?
Yes, definitely. There have been ongoing discussions about maybe extending tariff exemptions, particularly for things like electronic components.
Like for phones and computers and stuff.
Yeah. And specifically parts related to the iPhone supply chain. That whole ecosystem is just so complex and global.
Makes sense. What else?
Then there's the auto industry. You've got the big players, Ford, GM, Stellantis. They've been pushing back pretty hard, lobbying against tariffs on auto parts from China.
Because they need those parts for their cars built here, right?
Exactly. slapping tariffs on those specific components could actually end up hurting American car production and making cars more expensive.
Yeah, that seems counterproductive.
Right. And it looked like maybe that lobbying is working. There's some talk that high-end servers and these crucial auto components might actually get full tariff exemptions.
Full exemptions. Okay.
Yeah, which, by the way, could be a really big plus for Taiwanese companies that make auto parts. Apparently, like, half of their exports in that sector go to the U.S. market.
Wow, 50%. So yeah, an exemption would be huge for them.
Definitely. So it shows that even if the headline tariff rates change, the specific details for different industries and components are really where the action is. You got to watch those closely.
It really feels like this whole trade war thing has forced a lot of companies to fundamentally rethink their whole manufacturing strategy.
It absolutely has. We saw it start early on, remember, with companies adopting that China plus one strategy.
Right, the idea of not putting all your eggs in the China basket.
Exactly. Moving some production, often assembly or finishing work, to Asian countries, Vietnam, Malaysia, Thailand, places like that, just to spread the risk.
But weren't those countries still kind of dependent on China for the important bits? Like, they weren't making everything.
That's a really key distinction. Yeah, for the most part, those ASEAN countries were doing the later stage of the processing or assembly. China often still provided the really critical components, the advanced tech parts.
So it wasn't a clean break, more like adding another step further down the line.
Pretty much. It was diversification, but not necessarily complete independence from the Chinese supply chain.
Okay.
However, the stated goal from some U.S. policymakers seems to be aiming for a more complete separation eventually, a real decoupling between China and Southeast Asia.
What would that even look like?
The idea would be to build up the capacity within those Southeast Asian countries so they could make the components themselves directly, not just assemble Chinese parts.
Wow. That sounds like a monumental task. Years, decades maybe.
Yeah.
And tons of investment.
Oh, absolutely. It's a huge shift we're talking about. And it could potentially lead to a major reshuffling of global supply chains across a whole bunch of industries.
Like which ones?
Things like textiles, electronics, definitely, computers, even furniture. But how much and how fast depends a lot on the industry itself.
So is the idea that everything eventually moves out of China? Is that realistic?
Probably not everything. I think industries where it's maybe easier to set up shop, lower barriers to entry, think furniture, maybe musical instruments, toys. Those seem more likely candidates to potentially relocate more fully, maybe to places like Vietnam or Indonesia, where labor costs might be lower too.
Right. Moving a toy factory is probably less complicated than moving, say, semiconductor manufacturing.
Exactly. Because on the flip side, China still has enormous production capacity. And crucially, some key technology advantages in areas like electronics and auto components. Really advanced stuff.
Which is probably why we're hearing about those potential exemptions you mentioned earlier.
Precisely. It could be a way of acknowledging that reality and maybe giving Southeast Asian countries, or even Mexico, more breathing room, more time to actually develop their own capabilities in those tougher, more high-tech sectors.
Like a phased approach to diversification. Interesting. And how are other countries fitting into this picture, like Japan?
Well, there was a recent signal from the White House that the value of the Japanese yen, its exchange rate, isn't going to be a major bone of contention in the upcoming U.S.-Japan trade talks.
Okay. Why is that significant?
It could set a bit of a precedent. Other countries like South Korea, Taiwan, other Southeast Asian economies might see that and think, okay, maybe the U.S. will be less focused on currency issues in our own trade dealings too.
Yeah.
It could signal a potentially more stable trade environment for them.
Huh. It just shows how everything is connected, doesn't it? These U.S.-China tariff decisions ripple out everywhere.
Absolutely. The global economy is incredibly intertwined.
But all this back and forth, this uncertainty, it must be creating some nervousness in the markets overall, right? Beyond that initial jump we saw.
Oh, for sure. The short-term volatility is definitely there.
Right.
Driven purely by not knowing what trade policy will look like next month or next year.
Yeah.
And interestingly, Bank of America put out some data recently showing that optimism among big institutional investors towards U.S. stocks is actually really low right now.
Lower than usual.
That is even lower than during the 2007-2008 financial crisis.
Whoa. Seriously. Lower than then. That's saying something.
It really is. It suggests the big money managers are feeling pretty wary about the U.S. market outlook at the moment.
And what about businesses themselves, like CEOs?
Similar story, apparently. Optimism levels among U.S. CEOs are also reported to be quite low. And that seems linked to hesitation about making big investments.
Because of the tariff situation.
Yeah, because it's just so hard to plan when you don't know what your costs are going to be or where you should be sourcing things from. It fosters a really cautious wait-and-see attitude.
Like everyone's just holding their breath, waiting for clarity before making any big moves.
Pretty much. And remember, it's not just the tariffs themselves that make trade complicated and expensive.
Right. There are other things too.
Yeah. Non-tariff barriers. That's another big area of concern for businesses. Things like, complicated regulations, super slow customs processes, specific product standards. They can all add costs and headaches, much like tariffs do.
So it's a whole web of things companies have to navigate. Okay, let's switch gears for a second. This is important. Something we really wanted to give you a heads up about today.
Yes, definitely want to flag this.
We've been noticing and hearing about a real uptick in online scams lately. It seems like they're everywhere, and we just want everyone to be super careful out there.
Yeah, it's critical. These scams are getting more sophisticated, much harder to spot sometimes.
Totally. And specifically, we want to warn you about AI-generated fake accounts, and also be really cautious about unsolicited private messages, DMs you might get out of the blue.
It's getting scary good. They can use AI to create incredibly realistic fake profiles now, pictures, bios, everything.
Right, and they can scrape information about you from online to make their messages seem really personal and convincing.
So please just be incredibly wary of any unexpected messages, friend requests, especially if they start asking for personal information or, money. Click on links cautiously. Don't share sensitive stuff.
Yeah, trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. We actually feel this is such a big and growing problem that we're planning to do a whole separate deep dive just on online scams and how to protect yourself.
Definitely. It deserves its own focus because the tactics change so fast. So
yeah,
stay tuned for that coming up soon.
For sure. But okay, bringing it back to the trade stuff to wrap up for today.
Right. It really does feel like we're stuck in this period of pretty significant uncertainty, doesn't it?
Absolutely. I think if there's one big takeaway from our deep dive today, it's that this constant uncertainty around trade policy, especially relating to the former president's potential moves, it's creating real challenges.
Yeah, challenges for the Federal Reserve trying to steer the economy.
For businesses trying to make investment decisions.
And just for investors trying to figure out where to put their money. It leaves everyone in a really tricky spot.
Kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop, or maybe hoping it won't.
Exactly. The shifting signals, the potential for sudden policy changes, it just makes any kind of long-term planning incredibly difficult for basically everyone involved.
Well, we'll be keeping a very close eye on it all.
Absolutely. We're committed to tracking the negotiations, watching the market reactions, any new policy details that emerge.
And we'll definitely bring you all the latest updates and analysis in our future discussions. So thanks for diving deep with us again today.
Yes, indeed. I just want to give another shout out to Micky from Mickytolife. His channel is a treasure trove of inspiration, and he's a huge Sip and Talk fan.
Absolutely. Make sure to check him out and maybe even share your awesome podcast intro with him once you've created it.
Okay, settle down, you savvy listeners. We were just wrangling those brand new tariffs. What a roller coaster.
Yeah, it certainly stirs things up.
Totally. But you know what they say, when one door slams shut, sometimes a window pops open and you see some sunshine peeking through. All this shaking up of prices and trade could actually shine a spotlight on some really interesting new possibilities.
So that's a very insightful way to look at it. Disruptions like these tariffs can indeed lead to a reassessment of value and underscore the fundamental strengths of certain industries. It forces everyone to think about where sustained growth is, truly likely.
Exactly. So for this next part of our little get-together, we're putting on our super cool future goggles. We've been digging through a whole bunch of information, trying to figure out, what the next big waves might be over the coming 5 to 10 years. Now listen, we're not claiming to be those Wall Street wizards with the fancy jargon and secret handshakes. We're just looking at the big trends, seeing what the actual experts are saying, and trying to connect the dots in a way that makes sense for you.
Right.
Think of us as doing the initial climb so you get a better view from the top, mostly.
Precisely. Our goal isn't to offer financial advice, but rather to provide a well-informed perspective on industries that are showing strong indicators for significant future expansion, based on the research and analysis we've conducted, of course.
All right, then, let's pull back the curtain and take a peek at the 3 areas that really jumped out at us. First off, We're plunging into the fascinating world of artificial intelligence, AI, and the massive computing infrastructure that makes all that brain power possible.
A very hot topic.
Oh, yeah. After that, we'll be plugging into the rapidly evolving world of clean energy and electric transportation.
Also critical.
And finally, we'll be exploring the incredible advancements happening in biotech, healthcare, and longevity tech. Sounds like a plan, right?
It certainly does. Let's dive right into AI and computing infrastructure. What's generating all the excitement in that space?
Okay, so think back just a little bit, like maybe a year or two ago. If you weren't a super techie person, AI was probably something you only saw in sci-fi movies, right?
Generally, yes. More conceptual for most.
But now, your aunt is asking you about ChatGPT at Thanksgiving dinner. This explosion of generative AI, the stuff that can write emails, create amazing images, even write computer code. It's like a giant wave hitting the digital world.
It really is.
And guess what that wave needs to ride on? Huge, super powerful computers, data centers the size of, those massive airplane hangars, incredibly fast chips, and all those cloud platforms humming away in the background.
That's an excellent way to put it. The user-friendly nature of generative AI has definitely brought it into the mainstream consciousness and, more importantly, significantly increased its demand.
Totally.
And you're right, it's not just about the clever software. It demands immense computational muscle to train and operate these complex models.
Totally. And it's not just the big flashy AI living in the cloud either. Think about your phone getting better at understanding your voice, or maybe your car getting closer to driving itself.
Edge computing.
Right. That's AI sneaking into our everyday gadgets through something called edge computing and AIoT, which is just a fancy way of saying artificial intelligence of things, where smart devices are all connected and talking to each other.
Precisely. Extending intelligence beyond the data center.
And then you've got all these AI software platforms working behind the scenes. Imagine businesses using AI as a super efficient customer service agent, or getting incredibly smart suggestions on what their customers might want to buy, or even just crunching their business numbers in a way that actually makes sense.
A SaaS application.
It's like having a super brain assistant for practically everything.
Absolutely. And the investment landscape mirrors this multi-layered system. When we talk about the foundational hardware, companies like NVIDIA, AMD, and Taiwan's semiconductor manufacturing company, TSMC, they're absolutely critical.
The chip makers.
Yes. NVIDIA, for example, gained an early advantage with its CUDA platform, which proved to be incredibly well-suited for the parallel processing demands of AI development.
Right.
These companies design and manufacture the advanced chips, especially GPUs, graphics processing units, originally for graphics, but fantastic for AI training.
Yeah, I remember GPUs from gaming.
Exactly. And increasingly, NPUs, neural processing units, which are specifically designed for the inference stage, making AI models run efficiently on devices.
Right. Those chip guys are like the unsung heroes. It's like trying to build a super fast race car.
Yeah.
You need a powerful engine first.
A very apt analogy.
And then you've got the cloud giants, Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, AWS, and Google Cloud. They're providing the massive digital infrastructure.
The platforms.
Yeah. Think of it like renting space in a giant, incredibly powerful computer that multiple companies can use at the same time, instead of each company having to build and maintain their own massive infrastructure.
Exactly. Scalability and accessibility.
That's where all this AI magic gets hosted and run.
Precisely. They provide the platforms and services that allow AI applications to be built, deployed, and scaled to millions of users. And then, of course, we have the companies directly focused on creating AI applications and platforms.
Okay, like who?
Well, OpenAI, the minds behind ChatGPT, is a perfect example, although their stock isn't publicly traded yet, so a potential IPO is something many are watching closely.
Okay. Still private for now.
For now. Then you have companies like Palantir, which specializes in analyzing enormous data sets for businesses and governments.
Right, Palantir. They do some serious data crunching.
Indeed. And Salesforce, which is integrating AI into its customer relationship management tools, CRM, essentially giving your sales team an AI brain, as you put it.
Yeah, Palantir always felt a bit under the radar, but their work with big data and now AI seems to be getting more and more attention.
Yeah.
And Salesforce, everyone knows Salesforce.
They're embedding AI deeply into their core offerings.
Now, we also saw some other names popping up in our research, like CoreWeave and Supermicrocomputer. They sound like they're building some serious muscle, specifically for the AI world, too, right?
Exactly. CoreWeave concentrates on providing high-performance computing resources specifically optimized for the intense demands of AI workloads.
So like specialized cloud power.
In essence, yes. And Supermicrocomputer builds the specialized servers needed to run these demanding AI applications efficiently.
Gotcha.
It all highlights the increasing global technological reliance on semiconductors. These aren't just for your smartphone anymore. They are the fundamental building blocks for everything from your smart refrigerator to those colossal AI servers.
They're kind of mind-blowing.
AI and high-performance computing are major drivers for the demand for increasingly sophisticated chips, especially those GPUs and NPUs we discussed. And to house all this processing power, the expansion of data centers seems almost unstoppable.
It's kind of mind-blowing when you really think about it. We just expect our phones to work and the internet to be lightning fast. But underneath it all is this incredible engine powered by these tiny, incredibly complex chips.
The foundation of modern tech.
And it's not just AI fueling this demand, is it? Our sources mentioned a few other big areas where chips are becoming increasingly important.
That's absolutely correct. The semiconductor industry is experiencing surging demand from a multitude of sectors. Beyond AI, consider the revolution in autonomous driving and electric vehicles.
Oh yeah, cars are basically computers on wheels now.
Essentially. A modern EV contains significantly more semiconductors than a traditional gasoline-powered car, managing everything from the battery system and electric motors to the increasing amount of sensor data for advanced driver assistance features.
Right, all those cameras and sensors.
Then we have the ongoing global rollout of 5G networks and the future development of 6G, along with the massive expansion of the Internet of Things, billions of connected devices.
Your smart thermostat, your watch.
Exactly. Smartwatches, thermostats, industrial sensors, medical wearables, they all require various types of chips. And we can't overlook the geopolitical landscape.
The supply chain stuff.
Countries worldwide are recognizing the critical strategic importance of semiconductor manufacturing and are actively investing in building their own domestic supply chains. This desire for self-sufficiency is another significant driver of demand.
It's like everyone suddenly wants their own super advanced chip factory. Reminds me of when everyone was hoarding toilet paper, except this time it's way more complicated and has much bigger consequences.
Hey, perhaps a politely more complex commodity.
Just a bit. But actually building these things sounds incredibly difficult, right? We heard about Moore's Law slowing down and some serious hurdles on the manufacturing side.
Yes, Moore's Law, which predicted a roughly doubling of transistors on a microchip approximately every 2 years, is indeed slowing down.
Running out of room.
We're approaching the fundamental physical limits of how small we can make these components. This necessitates innovation in chip architecture, such as wafer-level packaging and 3D stacking, to continue boosting performance.
Okay. Fancy new ways to pack things tighter.
Essentially, wafer-level packaging is like putting all the different parts of a system directly onto a single large silicon wafer before cutting it into individual chips, improving efficiency and speed. 3D stacking is literally stacking multiple layers of chips on top of each other to increase density and performance in a smaller footprint.
Whoa, like chip skyscrapers.
You could think of it that way. There's also a significant global shortage of skilled semiconductor engineers, which can impact production capacity and the speed of innovation.
So not enough brainiacs to build the things.
It's a challenge, and the sheer complexity and enormous cost of developing and manufacturing cutting-edge chips, like those using 2-nanometer processes, mean that only a handful of companies can realistically compete at that level. Balancing production yield the number of usable chips you get from a batch with cost-effectiveness at these incredibly advanced manufacturing stages is a constant and immense challenge.
So it's not just about designing the next super cool chip. It's also about actually being able to make them reliably, efficiently, and at a price that doesn't break the bank.
Precisely. Design and manufacturing go hand in hand.
But looking ahead, despite all these challenges, the long-term outlook for the semiconductor industry still seems pretty bright, doesn't it?
Absolutely. The continuous and expanding adoption of AI across countless industries will generate sustained and growing demand for high-performance computing chips.
AI needs its fuel.
Indeed. The trend of chip localization, fueled by government incentives and strategic security concerns, will likely create new opportunities for companies in various regions around the globe.
Building factories closer to home.
We're also seeing an increasing trend of integrating chip design more intimately with software development, as companies like Apple are demonstrating with their custom silicon.
Right, Apple's M-series chips.
Exactly. And while it's further out on the horizon, the long-term potential of quantum computing represents a potentially revolutionary shift in computing architecture.
Quantum. Okay, that's still pretty far out.
Further out, yes, but it would undoubtedly create entirely new demands for specialized hardware if and when it matures.
Okay, so from the super tiny world of chips powering giant AI brains, let's do a complete 180 and talk about something equally massive, trying to keep our planet from turning into a giant pizza oven.
A vivid description.
That brings us to our second industry, clean energy and electric transportation.
Indeed. The escalating global pressure to drastically reduce carbon emissions is a huge driving force behind this entire sector.
You hear about it everywhere, net zero goals.
We're seeing governments worldwide setting ambitious net zero emissions targets, and this creates a very powerful tailwind for the development and deployment of clean energy technologies.
Right.
Compounding this is the projection that electric vehicle adoption will surpass 50% of all new car sales by 2030.
50%? That's like flipping a coin, and half the time it lands on an electric car.
It's a massive shift in the automotive landscape.
It feels like just yesterday, EVs were this niche thing that only super early adopters were into. It feels like things are really hitting the fast-forward button now.
The adoption curve is certainly steepening.
And it's not just about the cars themselves, is it? Our sources really highlighted solar power, the potential of hydrogen, those massive battery packs we call energy storage.
Energy storage is crucial.
And even making our power grids way smarter. It sounds like we're building a whole new energy system from the ground up.
That's a comprehensive way to describe it. The transition to a truly sustainable energy future necessitates innovation and significant investment across all of these interconnected areas.
Okay, so where should people be looking?
When we look at investment opportunities, electric vehicle manufacturers like Tesla, BYD, Lucid, and Rivian are prominent.
The car companies themselves.
Yes. It's particularly interesting to note the prediction that EV sales in China are expected to exceed those of traditional internal combustion engine vehicles for the first time in 2025.
Wow, next year already.
That's the projection, with BYD really leading the charge in that market. We're also observing international expansion from companies like VinFast, which signals a global move towards electric mobility.
It's like a global race to plug in, and you can't have all these electric vehicles without the batteries. Right?
Absolutely not.
Who are the big players in that absolutely crucial part of the equation?
The battery technology and materials sector is every bit as vital. Companies like CATL are major global players in current lithium-ion battery production for EVs and other applications.
Okay, CATL.
While companies like QuantumScape and Solid Power are at the cutting edge of developing next-generation solid-state battery technology.
Solid state. That's the next big thing.
It holds the promise of increased range, faster charging times, and enhanced safety. Still under development, but very promising. We should also recognize other significant battery innovators such as LG Energy Solution and Panasonic.
Right. Panasonic worked with Tesla early on.
They did, a long-standing partnership.
Solid-state batteries sound like the holy grail for EVs. More power, safer. What's not to love?
Well, cost and manufacturability at scale are still hurdles to overcome.
Always a catch. And then, on the energy generation side, it seems like solar power is really soaking up the spotlight, if you'll pardon the slightly sun-related pun.
In the solar and energy storage space, companies like Enphase Energy and SolarEdge, which focus on solar inverters and energy storage solutions for homes and businesses, are key players.
The stuff you put on your roof.
And accompanying systems, yes. And then you have a major energy company like NextEra Energy, which is heavily invested in large-scale renewable energy generation, massive wind and solar farms.
Utility scale.
Exactly. As well as significant energy storage projects. First, solar is also consistently recognized as a leading clean energy stock, primarily focused on the manufacturing of solar panels, particularly thin film panels.
Okay, different types of solar panels too.
Yes. And let's not forget the potential of green hydrogen produced using renewable energy.
Right. Hydrogen cars were talked about a lot before.
It could have significant applications in areas beyond just transportation, such as industrial processes, heavy transport, and long-duration energy storage. Still early days for widespread adoption, though.
So it's everything from the solar panels you might put on your own roof, all the way up to these enormous utility-scale projects that power entire cities.
A very broad spectrum.
Our sources also mentioned that global EV sales are significantly up. That must be putting a real strain on the charging infrastructure, right?
That's a very critical point.
It's like having all these amazing electric cars, but nowhere convenient to actually plug them in and juice them up.
The widespread adoption of EVs is absolutely dependent on the expansion and modernization of charging infrastructure. It's a major bottleneck.
Yeah, got to plug them in somewhere.
This includes not just increasing the number of charging stations available, but also deploying faster charging technologies.
Get charged up quicker.
And the development of bidirectional charging, also known as V2G or vehicle-to-grid.
V2G.
It would allow EVs not just to draw power from the grid, but also to potentially supply energy back to homes during power outages or even back to the grid at peak times.
Really?
Offering potential cost savings for the owner and grid stability benefits.
Bidirectional charging.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool. Your car could basically become a giant mobile battery for your house or even help out the power company.
That's the concept, yes. Requires smart grid integration.
And it's fascinating to see how all these pieces connect. We were talking about semiconductors earlier, and it sounds like EVs are also becoming major consumers of these advanced chips.
Absolutely. Electric vehicles utilize a significantly higher number of semiconductors compared to traditional gasoline-powered cars.
Way more chips.
Significantly more. These chips are essential for managing the complex battery systems, controlling the electric motors, processing the increasing amounts of sensor data for advanced driver assistance systems, ADSS.
Like lane keeping and stuff.
Exactly. And managing the in-car infotainment and connectivity features. As we progress towards more autonomous driving capabilities, the demand for sophisticated automotive-grade semiconductors will only continue to rise sharply.
Makes sense. More tech needs more chips. Okay, so we've journeyed from the brains of the digital world to powering our physical world in a cleaner, more sustainable way.
A logical progression.
Now let's talk about maybe sticking around in that world a little longer. That brings us to our third fascinating industry, biotech, healthcare, and longevity tech.
This is a field that's being propelled forward by both significant demographic shifts and incredibly rapid technological advancements.
Why so?
Well, the global population is aging, particularly in developed nations. This leads to a growing and sustained demand for long-term healthcare solutions.
Right, more older folks means more healthcare needs.
Simultaneously, we're witnessing remarkable progress in areas like gene editing, think CRISPR.
Yeah, CRISPR is huge.
Precision medicine, tailoring treatments to individuals, and the increasingly sophisticated use of artificial intelligence in drug discovery and development.
AI helping find new medicines, that's cool.
It's accelerating the process significantly.
Yeah, it really feels like we're on the verge of some major breakthroughs in how we understand and treat diseases, and maybe even in how long we can expect to live healthy lives.
The potential is certainly there.
And biotech isn't just about the big pharmaceutical companies cooking up new pills anymore, is it? It sounds like it's branching out in all sorts of really interesting and innovative areas.
Exactly. The traditional definition of biotech has expanded considerably. It now increasingly encompasses digital health solutions, wearable devices that can monitor our health metrics in real time.
My fitness tracker.
That's part of it. Also, remote care technologies that allow for healthcare delivery outside of traditional clinics, and the rapidly emerging field of anti-aging or longevity tech.
Longevity tech. Trying to live longer.
Or, perhaps more accurately, live healthier for longer. Extending health span. It's a much broader and more integrated landscape than just traditional pharmaceutical drug discovery.
So where are some of the really exciting investment areas within this evolving space? It feels like precision medicine is a term we're hearing a lot these days.
Precision medicine, which aims to tailor medical treatments to an individual's unique genetic makeup, lifestyle, and environment, is indeed a very key and rapidly advancing area.
Makes sense. Treat the person, not just the disease.
Precisely. Companies like Illumina, which specializes in genomics and gene sequencing technologies, are absolutely foundational to this field. They provide the tools to read the genetic code.
Okay, Illumina.
CRISPR Therapeutics, a leader in gene editing technologies that hold the potential to correct or even cure genetic diseases.
Fixing faulty genes.
That's the goal. And Moderna, which demonstrated the incredible power of mRNA technology with its COVID-19 vaccine and is applying it to other diseases.
Moderna, right. mRNA tech seems super versatile.
It does. They're all at the very forefront of innovation. We should also acknowledge established biotech powerhouses like Vertex Pharmaceuticals and Amgen, who continue to drive innovation across a wide range of therapeutic areas using various approaches.
So big established players are innovating too.
Absolutely. They have significant research budgets and pipelines.
CRISPR and Moderna. Those are definitely names that have become household words.
It really feels like gene editing has the potential to be truly revolutionary in how we approach disease.
It holds immense promise, though ethical considerations and ensuring safety are paramount.
Good point. And then there's digital health. My smartwatch nagging me to get up and move every hour. Is that the cutting edge of digital health?
Slight chuckle. That's certainly a part of the picture. Consumer wellness tech. But digital health encompasses a much broader and more impactful range of technologies aimed at improving healthcare delivery and ultimately patient outcomes. Think of companies like Teladoc Health, providing virtual telemedicine services.
Seeing a doctor on your phone? Dexcom, renowned for its continuous glucose monitoring systems that are life-changing for people with diabetes.
Yeah, those CGM devices are amazing.
And Fitbit, now part of Google, and a leading name in health and fitness wearables, collecting valuable data.
Data that could maybe predict problems.
That's one application being explored. It's also worth noting that Teladoc is exploring the use of AI to provide more personalized and efficient care to its patients through its platform.
So AI doctor assistants too.
Guiding patients, suggesting next steps, analyzing data, perhaps.
So it's going way beyond just counting your steps. It's about getting actual, potentially life-changing medical insights from the devices we wear every day.
That's the direction it's heading. Continuous monitoring and data analysis.
And then there's this whole longevity tech thing. It honestly sounds like something straight out of a science fiction movie.
It definitely has a futuristic feel to it, but it's a rapidly growing area, attracting significant investment, particularly in early-stage ventures funded by venture capital.
So serious money is going into this.
Yes. Companies like Altos Labs, backed by Jeff Bezos.
Bezos is in on this.
Wow. And Calico, a research and development company founded by Google's parent company Alphabet, are focused on fundamental research in areas like cellular reprogramming and gaining a deeper understanding of the biological processes of aging.
Trying to, make old cells young again.
That's one simplified way to think about cellular reprogramming, yes. Unity Biotechnology is also exploring therapies that target age-related diseases by clearing out senescent cells, old, damaged cells.
Zombie cells. I read about those.
Hey, that's a common term for them. More recently, Retro Biosciences, which has received backing from Sam Altman.
The OpenAI guy.
Yes. That company has also been gaining attention for its work in the field of cell reprogramming and related areas.
Jeff Bezos and Google and Sam Altman trying to crack the code to make us live longer?
Yeah.
That's both incredibly fascinating and just a tiny bit unsettling.
It certainly raises profound questions alongside the scientific potential.
It definitely sounds like a space with massive potential, though maybe a bit further out on the investment horizon for most people compared to AI or clean energy.
It's generally considered higher risk and longer term, yes.
Yeah.
More fundamental research stage for many approaches.
But it's still wild to think about the incredible progress in gene editing and these potential anti-aging technologies. And I'm guessing AI and those powerful semiconductors we talked about earlier are playing a role in these fields as well.
Absolutely. Artificial intelligence is increasingly being leveraged in drug discovery and development, helping researchers to identify potential drug candidates more efficiently, predict how molecules will behave, design clinical trials, and accelerate the often lengthy and expensive research process.
Easing things up.
Significantly. And advanced medical devices like sophisticated imaging machines or robotic surgical systems, as well as sophisticated wearable health monitors, rely heavily on advanced semiconductors for their functionality, data processing capabilities, and connectivity.
So chips are everywhere, even inside us, kind of.
Or monitoring us very closely.
Okay, so we've covered a huge amount of ground today, from the AI revolution to the clean energy transition and the cutting edge of biotech and longevity.
3 massive, potentially transformative areas.
If someone's been listening and thinking, wow, these all sound like really interesting areas where I might want to consider putting some money, what were some of the overall investment strategies or advice that came out of our research? Again, not advice, just what the sources said.
Right, acknowledging the disclaimer. Our sources consistently emphasize the importance of focusing on structural growth industries.
Meaning?
Those sectors that are driven by significant long-term trends like the ones we've discussed and are therefore less likely to be drastically affected by short-term economic fluctuations.
So big trends that aren't going away.
That's the idea. They also highlighted the value of diversifying investment risk by considering exchange-traded funds, or ETFs.
ETFs.
ETFs track broad indices in areas like AI, clean energy, and biotech. Some examples mentioned included the iShares Future AI and Tech ETF, the iShares Global Clean Energy ETF, and the SPDR S&P Biotech ETF.
So you buy a basket of companies in that sector.
Correct. Investing in ETFs allows you to gain exposure to a basket of companies within a specific sector rather than trying to pick individual winners, which can be very difficult.
ETF. So it's like buying a little slice of the whole pie instead of trying to guess which single apple will be the tastiest, right?
That's a good analogy. It spreads the risk.
That definitely makes sense for us non-expert types. But our sources also had a few words of caution for anyone thinking about jumping into these areas, didn't they?
Yes, absolutely crucial. It's vital to remain aware of potential geopolitical and regulatory changes, particularly in the rapidly evolving tech and energy sectors.
Like what?
For example, ongoing discussions and potential changes to AI chip export regulations could impact semiconductor companies. Or the future of governmental support for clean energy initiatives like the U.S. Inflation Reduction Act.
The IRA, yeah.
Could have significant impacts on renewable energy and EV companies. Policy matters a lot here.
Definitely.
It's also important to remember that while these sectors offer tremendous long-term potential, they can also experience significant market volatility.
Ups and downs.
Yeah.
Big ones sometimes.
Potentially, yes. In the biotech sector, for instance, the results of clinical trials for new drugs can cause substantial swings in stock prices up or down.
A trial fails, the stock tanks.
It can happen. In the clean energy sector, shifts in government policy or subsidies can have a major impact on investment sentiment. And in the fast-paced world of AI, rapid technological breakthroughs can quickly alter the competitive landscape.
Someone comes out with a better AI, suddenly the leader looks shaky.
Competition is intense and fast-moving.
So it's not all smooth sailing and guaranteed riches, even in these promising areas.
Yeah.
You really got to keep your finger on the pulse of the news and understand the broader context that these industries are operating in.
Due diligence and awareness are key.
Our research also touched on the fact that different parts of the world seem to have different strengths and areas of focus in these sectors, didn't it?
That's right. Our analysis indicated that the Asia-Pacific region, particularly countries like China, South Korea, and Japan, is demonstrating rapid growth and innovation in areas like clean energy technologies, batteries, solar manufacturing, and also longevity research.
Okay, Asia strong in clean energy and longevity.
Meanwhile, the U.S. and Europe currently hold leading positions in areas such as fundamental artificial intelligence research and development, software platforms, and also in biotech innovation, particularly pharmaceuticals and advanced gene therapies.
U.S. and Europe leading in AI and biotech.
Got it. These regional dynamics can definitely influence investment opportunities and the overall competitive landscape within these global industries.
Well, this has been a truly fascinating deep dive. We've explored everything from the incredibly intricate world of semiconductors to the massive potential of clean energy and the very personal and profound quest for better health and longer lives through biotech.
Indeed. These three sectors, artificial intelligence and the necessary computing infrastructure, the transition to clean energy and electric transportation, and the advancements in biotech, healthcare, and longevity technologies, all appear poised for significant and potentially transformative growth.
Yeah.
Driven by powerful converging forces, technological innovation, evolving societal needs, and pressing environmental imperatives over the next 5 to 10 years.
And just a friendly reminder to all of you listening out there, this wasn't us giving out specific stock recommendations or financial advice.
Okay.
Definitely not. We're just trying to shine a light on some really interesting trends and potential areas to keep an eye on based on the information we've been digging through. Hopefully it's given you some food for thought and maybe even sparked a bit of curiosity to go learn more on your own.
Absolutely. We encourage you to delve deeper into the specific companies and technologies we've mentioned, or to explore other related topics that have captured your interest. As we navigate an increasingly complex world, having a solid understanding of these long-term trends can be incredibly valuable regardless of your investment strategy.
Couldn't agree more. So as we start to wrap things up for today, here's a little something to really chew on. With artificial intelligence becoming more and more integrated into the fabric of our daily lives, what are the really critical ethical boundaries we need to be thinking about right now to make sure we steer clear of a sci-fi future that we might not actually want? Just something to ponder until our next conversation. And that's a wrap on this episode of Sip and Talk. Thanks for joining us on this incredible journey.